Just like an athlete's career, coaching can take many different roads with many different roles. Some of us get into coaching through volunteer work, while for others, the job is a calling. No matter the case, no two coaching journeys are the same. But with that said, at the end of the day, the common thread that binds great coaches together is to teach, to motivate, and to help athletes use sport as a vehicle for their growth as human beings. Because winning, however you choose to define that word, tends to take care of itself when that happens. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Win, a show where we interview champions and trailblazers and ask questions to uncover and discover their championship traits for succeeding in sports, work, and life. Win is part of Grit, a pivotalmomentsmedia.com channel focused on breaking the stigma surrounding mental fitness in sports. Visit pivotalmomentsmedia.com for more episodes, content, and education on how we can tackle that challenge together. Our guest today, Coach Shawnee Harle, has nearly 30 years of experience coaching, which includes appearances at the World University Games, the FIBA Americas, the World Championships, and 2 Olympic Games as the assistant coach with the Canadian women's basketball team. In addition to her experience, Shawnee is also the most highly certified basketball coach in Canada and has accreditation as a chartered professional coach with the Coaching Association of Canada, a master's in coaching studies, and a level 5 certification with the National Coaching Certification Program. Even still, with all of her experiences as a coach, Shawnee has spent recent years dedicating herself to the mental side of the game by helping athletes make sense of what's going on in their head and heart in order to cut through the noise and, as she puts it, unleash their inner tiger. Coach, can't thank you enough for joining us on Win today. JB and I are looking forward to this conversation.
Let's go, boys.
I love it. Coach, how you doing? Welcome. I think coaching is so amazing. I coached at the youth level, a couple sports all the way up through high school. My son's a hockey coach. My fiance is a professional skating coach. So I just think that, when you inspire and motivate and coach others, there's so much reward in that. So, Coach, my first question to you is, where did this drive for coaching come from? And what was the moment you realized, hey, this is something I, want to do as a career?
That wasn't how my path rolled out. It wasn't like I had this big awakening. It's like, you know what? This is what I've been meant to do my whole life. Thank goodness I finally figured it out. That wasn't how, it didn't roll out that way. The way mine rolled out was I wasn't a good enough athlete. Basketball has always been my passion, and I chose the wrong sport because I'm only 5'5", probably with on my tippy toes. And anyways, I had a huge passion for it, and I played university basketball for 3 years. And I wrote in my high school yearbook that I wanted to go to the Olympics as a player, obviously. Hello,
right?
And then I got cut, and I thought my life had ended. The devastation. You're young. Your identity is wrapped in it. So I went into coaching because the coach that cut me after I got over being mad at her, because obviously it was her fault. Couldn't she see my amazing talent? After I got over that, she actually said, "Hey, have you ever thought about coaching?" I'm like, hell no, I'm an athlete. So that was the nudge. And they always say when one door closes, right, another opens. My athletic career door was closed, and then it opened to what I was actually meant to be doing. But I certainly didn't see that at the time.
I love that, because that's exactly how life is sometimes, right, Coach? You see one avenue, and you know what? It gets steered the right way. Go ahead, Lee.
I was going to say, Shawnee, I have a very similar story because people tease me about this because I'm known as a coach to most people. They call me coach. And I think it was my junior year or senior year of college. I was playing college hockey just like you. I'm going to go play pro. I'm going to do all this stuff. And I remember my college coach at the time skated up to me one day at practice. And again, my mindset's I'm an athlete, right? He goes, "You ever think about coaching?" I go, no, I'm a player. And he looked me right in the eye. He goes, "I see coach in you. I see coach in your future." And I was so pissed off that he said that to me. I remember I'm not a coach. I'm a player. And look, I was blessed to have a cup of coffee in the minors. I really was. But it was shortly after that I did step into a coaching role for the first time, and I realized, you know what? I think I'm good at this. I enjoy this, right? And you notice I'm using the word I, because most young coaches start out thinking about that way. I am good at it. I can do this. That's actually going to lead me into my next question, because the more I did it, the more I realized it's not about me at all. and the more I embraced that, I think the better of a coach I actually became. So my next question for you, kind of bringing this story forward, is, coaches evolve like players over time. Sometimes probably even more so, because you can coach longer than you play. So what has changed about you as a coach over the last 3 decades? Because again, we got to remember this. Not all coaches coach that long. Some coaches just coach a few years and that's it. When you've done this 2-3 decades, you're going to evolve, right? So as someone who's lived that life, how have you evolved as a coach?
It'd be interesting if you ask that to someone else that knows me. We often have blind spots still, right? They're called blind for a reason. What I would like to think is I've always been smart, but I think that I've evolved into being wise. And there's a big difference between smart and wise. I would also say that for the majority of my career, or just say a lot of it, it was about me. It wasn't like the ego is strong, right? And coaching really feeds that, because you're the center of everything. Right? You have to be the smartest person in the room all the time. You got to call the right play at the right time. You got to recruit the right athletes. You have to make the right practice plans. Like, you are, in my mind, I was the center of everything. And when you believe that to be true, think about how you show up every day. I was very much the old school coach. It was about me, and I liked it. I liked it being about me. I did.
It feels good.
And I was pretty damn good at it, and it felt good.
Yeah.
I would say that when I look back on that, I think we always were there, and we couldn't have been here unless we were there.
Right. And
I couldn't be this unless I was that. And that was not my greatest self. The results showed, like, I had lots of wins, but I know that was not my greatest self. I needed to evolve. I needed to grow up. I needed to gain this wisdom to remember my why. Why did I decide to do this in the first place? And we forget that a lot in sport. When we forget our why, it becomes about us.
Right. First off, I want to thank you for being so vulnerable with that answer. I think that's a tremendous answer. Yeah.
It's wonderful.
And I can tell you, I experienced the same thing. It feels great when the team's winning and they're interviewing you.
Yes.
And you did it. You did it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's funny is we still say all the right things, like, we, the team, right? But internally you feel like, yeah, I'm doing this, right?
Right on.
All right. And so young coaches, just if you're listening, completely normal at the beginning of a coaching journey to feel that way. But as Shawnee said, you have to evolve. You have to find your best self. If you're not learning, if you're not growing as a coach, what's going to happen is inevitable. You're going to lose your job at some point. You're going to fall on your face. Even if you're winning, that's going to happen. Look, I was at the peak of my, what I thought was my coaching journey. And I lost my team overnight almost. And it came down to earth real quick. And I'll tell you what, it was painful. It hurt a lot. To the point I was like, I don't think I want to even coach anymore. But look, I let the dust settle. I was a young man at the time. And it called to me again, and it called to me again. And just to build off your answer, just to know how similar the stories are. And again, even when we had our pre-call, I could sense the similarities. I think I told you, I had the privilege to speak at a coaches conference just earlier this week. And I was telling the coaches in the room, the first couple of times I spoke at this conference, because I've done it 5 times, I was all about, let me share what I know with you. And I've even evolved as a speaker, because this time I showed up and I actually showed all old episodes from this podcast. And I said, this isn't even really about me. I just want to share as much knowledge as I can that I've learned with you, because we together will learn and grow. Like, so even my attitude as a speaker has changed. And I'm not, again, just to back up, I'm not trying to say I was a cocky speaker. I'm just saying my understanding of why I'm doing this continually evolves. And I find more joy now. I'm going to say this real quick. I love to win and I hate to lose. That has never changed. I hate losing, but I take a lot of enjoyment now in just sharing and enjoying the journey and enjoying the experience with other people. Right. And I try very much to not make it about me, because at the end of the day, and Shawnee, I'll give you a chance to comment on this before we jump to the next question. At the end of the day, I think the largest joy of coaching is that it really isn't about me, right? It's about these athletes and the messages we can share, and that they might aspire to share some of this with other people, and that together we're creating a better place. I mean, I really feel that's what I get to accomplish.
It's the journey. It's the journey. And you have to take that piece away from it. And I love that, Coach Shawnee, you realized that in yourself. Yeah. A lot of coaches don't do that, and they time out. And then coaches have realized that in themselves, and then all of a sudden they adjust. And I think sometimes, and I'll let you caveat on this, Coach. I think sometimes when coaches feel they're adjusting, that they're getting away from what made them great or what makes it great, and they don't look at the whole concept of what's happening. And when you tell a coach to adjust, you're not saying, lose your standards. You're not saying you just got to deliver it. You got to deliver it a different way. I was an Army drill sergeant in 1991. The drill instructors today got to deliver the same message in a different way. The way I delivered it then wouldn't work now. Right. So you have to continue to develop yourself. Coach, you want to caveat on that?
Yeah, I do. It's almost like I got to call bullshit on some stuff. It's like we have all of these wonderful theories that sound so great. It's about the journey. It's about growing great people. And in a way, the reason I want to call bullshit on that is because that's not what sport rewards. Sport doesn't give a shit about that. If you want to know the truth, sport just wants to know what your win-loss record was. They just want to look at the stat sheet. They want to walk into a gym and they want to see banners. And I know that that's what I got caught up in. I lost my way of who that I wanted to be in the depth of my soul. I lost that relatively. I came in with it, and then I know I lost it along the way. I wanted to build great people. I wanted to, teach them to be leaders and all these things. Sport builds character, and really sport reveals it. And my character started getting revealed, where when I look back on it, I was striving for one thing, to win more often. And but what did I say? We're building great people. We're a family around here. And now when I look back, you know what? I was freaking lying to myself. I don't think I was intentionally lying to myself, but looking back on it, I'm like, I wanted to be a better person. I wanted to be more, but every day it was about do more. And as soon as I got into do more, it became about me, because the only thing I was striving for was banners.
I love the way you presented that. And I'll tell you why, because just similarities. I was the same way, right? I said the right things, but at the end of the day, I don't know if I was motivated by those things. I am now.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I really am not. And I'll tell you what, I've had just as much success, if not more, with the approach that we're talking about better people and the journey. And I think that is what, again, I feel like you're calling bullshit on your younger self, which I love. Because, and again, I know a lot of coaches that do that, right? We say the right things, but it's not what's motivating. It's the banners, right? And the trophy, and being able to say that. One of the things I changed, Shaw, you're just making me think of this, is that there was a time where banners and trophies mattered to me. And you know what my banners and trophies are now? It's the pictures of the team in a moment together. And if you actually come into my office, you won't see any trophies or banners, and I've got plenty. Right? You see moments of teams overcoming, or even moments of just individual success where a player made it for the first time. That's what motivates me now. And when I say evolving as a coach, I think you're right. I think maybe a lot of young coaches need to hear you right now, because you might say these things to yourself. That's why I'm doing it. But you really need to stop and take a look at yourself as a coach and say, okay, is this bullshit? As you said. Now, with that said, I think we also have to say this, and JB, you could probably talk about this too. Part of the journey is going through that, because I think if you're going to ascend to a higher level of coaching, you have to almost go through that selfish side of things if you want to do this at a very high level. Or
because you'll never get there.
Right.
Right. And that's the thing. And that's what happens is some of these coaches, they sacrifice everything else to get there. And then they get there and they're like, well, it worked for me to get here. And now I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to send this kid down. I'm going to do this thing. It's about the next win. And Coach Shawnee, you'll like this. We had a sports psychologist on, great guy, Dr. Derek Anderson. And he asked us a question. Can you have greatness without goodness in an organization? And the answer is yes. But he said, but should you?
Right.
Right. And that's that whole part. He's been a part of teams. He's like, I have a ring. I'll never wear it, from a team that they won a championship, but there was no goodness about the entire organization. But they won a championship. Right. All that was sacrificed. And I think there's a journey here that the coaches have to get under. And that's why I think when the whole organization gets together, I never bought into this. I heard a professional general manager tell me this one day: owners own, GMs manage, coaches coach, players play. That's what he said. And I was just like, I don't really buy into that. I think for that organization to be together, everybody needs to give way together. There needs to be input from players, from coaches, from the ownership. There needs to be input everywhere, because that's what I think, how you make a great organization. But I'll turn it back over to you two.
Go ahead, Johnny.
I think for us to evolve and transform, maybe we use the phrase growth mindset. The only way transformation happens means at some point you were untransformed.
Right.
You were not growing. You were fixed mindset. So it's like I said, I had to be where I was to get where I am. I just wish I would have figured that out a little bit sooner. So maybe that's the advice for younger coaches, is how do we have this awakening sooner rather than later? I believe that we can't get to this place that we're talking about when our ego is driving the bus, because when our ego drives the bus, we lack emotional intelligence and self-awareness. So we can't see. We're our eyes are open, but we're asleep.
Right.
So how do we? And there's nothing in our coach education system that teaches us about this. And maybe that's what we're trying to say, is all coaches are going to be asleep at some point. The ego's going to drive the bus. But then how do we awaken? How do we go, oh, wow, I'm doing that thing again where I'm making all about me and that's not what I wanted, but here I am doing it. Let's go wakey here and smarten up. Then the wisdom kicks in. But some coaches go an entire career and never have those moments of awakening.
No, but if they win, coach, they get recycled, and you see it all the time.
Yeah,
it's the recycle train.
Yes,
and
like
it's
a drug.
It's recycle.
Yep.
And then what happens is you never get any of these fresh eyes in there.
Right.
And then when you do get somebody with fresh eyes, it's all there's he's a college coach, or she's a college coach, or she's never won at this level, or he's never won at this level. There's always this pick against it. And that's where I'm saying that organizations have to do together. Go ahead, Lee.
And no, I'll say this too. Look, I think one of the goals of this show, like the primary goal of our channel, is to break the stigma surrounding mental fitness and mental health, and we will talk about that. But another goal within coaching is coaching has a lot of evolving to do as an industry. And there's a lot of misunderstood methods and motivations in this industry. So, and Shawnee, you break a great one: winning. One of the advices I give to young coaches, and again, look, it's tough. Ego's tough. I study ego now. I studied trust for many years. Now I'm starting to study ego and what the lack of ego can do. And also the fact that, and this surprises a lot of young coaches, we all kind of have this visual of ego as just kind of an asshole that only thinks about themselves. But the truth is, you can be a very good, well-intentioned person with an ego, yes. Right? It's not always, I feel like that was me. Like, I had great intentions in my 20s when I was coaching, but I had an ego. I was making it about myself because I had such great intentions. I have to keep doing this. That was my eyes being closed. These are the things that opened my eyes. One, and it's behind you. We talked about this a while back, Shawnee. For those of you listening, she has a big banner behind her that says "Winning Matters." The first thing I challenge young coaches to do, I say, define winning, because there's not one definition of that word. The traditional coaching definition is wins and losses. And make no mistake, the higher up you move up the ranks, especially when you're getting paid, that is part of your job description. All right, you do need to win. All right, games, but you have to look beyond that. And I have met coaches where winning is kids graduating high school without getting shot. All right. I have met coaches where winning is the program gets their first victory. I have met coaches where winning is that these kids can, with disabilities, can be part of a team. And it doesn't matter if they ever win a game. So as a coach, you need to define what that word means, or redefine what that word means, and know that there's more than one meaning. That's my first step. The second step, Coach, you talked about this. You need to realize pretty quickly that there is no path forward in coaching by yourself. You have gaps, you have blind spots, as you said at the top of the episode. You will always have gaps and blind spots, always. Accept that right away. And you need to surround yourself with good people that fill in those gaps, and that, as you said earlier, Shawnee, will call bullshit on you if they need to, right? Later in my career, I started finding people that sometimes I say they would annoy me, because they would tell me, hey, you're not seeing this, you're not doing this. And I would become part of coaching staffs where I'd annoy the head coach, right? And then the third thing is, again, look, it took me years to get here. The understanding of the people are more important than the product. And I really believe that. We had the CEO of Hockey Canada on, Tom Rennie, Shawnee. It was actually one of my favorite interviews. And he told us this great story about when he was coaching the Canucks and he was ready to coach in the NHL, and he got fired after just about 110 days. And he said that I forgot that these were people. I was so focused on my journey that I forgot these were people. And he said it changed how I coached when I went to the Rangers, and then I was with Hockey Canada. He goes, I changed it. And you know what? He goes, I had more success knowing that. So I think the last thing I'm going to say, and then I'll shut up because it's your time today. But the point I was going to make is that you can win. You can win games, period. Wins a loss. You can win and also have a high moral, ethical standard within your team. Those two things can and should coexist, right? You don't have to be what I think the TV maybe thought you had to be to succeed. And I just said that out of complete mental there. I yearn for coaching to evolve, to understand that more.
What do you think about this? When I look back, when I was first started to coach and everything was going so well and rocking it, I wish somebody would have got me to think about this. I wish they would have asked me when I was in the midst of my awesomeness, what's your greatest fear?
There you go.
I wish somebody would have asked me that, because when I look back, I didn't know it at the time because my emotional intelligence was pretty damn average, and so was my self-awareness. But when I look back on it, I lived in fear every day. And then the addiction comes. Because why does the addiction come? We're fighting a fear. What's the fear? Losing. Because the only thing that's getting rewarded and that makes me feel good about myself is the winning. And so go to the counter of that. If winning is the drug, think about the fear that comes when the opposite happens. What if we helped young coaches, right? Like right away go, if you haven't faced your deepest fear, your ego is going to drive the bus. And for every coach that I know, their deepest fear is to underperform, to not be successful, to lose. I never faced that because I was striving so hard to get the wins. What we're talking about is if we're going to evolve as people, there's two podiums. There's the sport podium and there's a podium called the podium of life. How am I doing with that as a coach on the podium of life? How am I showing up every day as my greatest self? I think one of the things that sport exposes in us as coaches and athletes about who we are is how do we handle losing?
Right.
And does losing kill, like, is losing so difficult that we shame ourselves when we lose? We guilt, blame, and shame rather than, hey, you know what? Losing and winning they're both normal.
Right.
What if we faced our deepest fear and had to put cards on the table? I wish I would have done that because I was fighting against my deepest fear every damn day.
Well, that's powerful. And I'll tell you what, I think a lot of coaches experience what you just said. And again, I want to reiterate this. You talked about the two podiums, right? And let me ask you as a question. I believe this, but do you believe you can be on both podiums at the same time? Because I think the lie is that you can't do both at the same time. You either win or you're a good person. And I think that's a lie. I think you can do both. I fully believe that. Now, there might be some consequences with that, right? If you run into a ruthless person that's willing to do anything, that could be a challenge. But that, like you said, I talked about defining winning. How do you define losing? Because I'll tell you what, all the top performers I know, Shawnee, they look at losing as an opportunity to learn something. It hurts. Don't get me wrong. I said this at the top of the episode. I hate to lose. I still hate it. But I deal with it completely differently now than I did when I was 24.
What I teach the athletes that I work with is goals are different than values. Goals are what you do, values are who you are.
Right.
What if you showed up every day on the court, the field, the pool, whatever, and you led with your values? Half the athletes didn't even know what their values are.
Right.
Having said that, neither do coaches.
Right.
Neither do coaches. So we lead with our goals. And then that's the only way we measure things, which is why we blame, shame, and guilt when we lose. We don't have any way to measure leading with our values, but the athletes that I work with, the number one value that I teach them to lead with is courage. Lead with courage. Show up with courage. When we lead with our values, then when we don't get what we want, I think we can accept it as part of normal. I'm going to show up every day. I'm either going to get what I want or I'm not going to get what I want. One of those two things is going to happen. Both of those are normal and I can handle either. When we lead with our values, it gives us another way to measure things because sport only gives us one. It's called a freaking scoreboard.
I think a lot of times though that those values are pushed away. We've seen it. We've seen it in sports. This recent Chicago Blackhawks incident. Everything else. We can go down the line. We can go down the line. And I think the what we forget and everybody forgets it at all levels. Like you do, coach. You coach the Olympics. You probably put a perfect plan together and you went out there and maybe your team lost. Well, the opponent, just like in the military, the enemy, they have a vote in what happens to you. And I think sometimes they have a vote. And I think sometimes we take that out. Well, the plan wasn't perfect enough. Right. Think things happen because there's this human element of the people on the other side that are trying to do the same thing. And I think when, as a coach and Lee and I, we help coaches too. And I always try to tell coaches, peel back that onion and find a way to lift that person's talent. right? And if you look at things even all the way back to the 1980, men's Olympic team there, and Herb Brooks, like he found a way to lift each person's talent. It doesn't show it in the movie, but whether it was like on that person a little bit, yeah, he had to ride Mike Ruzioni a little bit, but Mark Johnson, he was more like, hey, Mark, you're okay. Don't worry about it. Right. So coaches, we have to understand who people are as human beings and what makes them tick. And when we do that, then, you can find the best out of them. I mean, any of us can coach Sidney Crosby, right? I think because, he's driven by courage. He's driven by leadership. He's driven by dedication, but it's everybody else is trying to find that piece out of them and bring it out. Coach, I'm going to ask you this question because, you're all about mental toughness and mental resilience, and you're teaching this to a player, to a coach, or to us. Just give us some of these words of wisdom on mental toughness. How we become more resilient.
You're probably not going to like the answer that much.
No, I'm going to love your answer. Why? I got thick skin here. Come on.
The reason is because it's so interesting. Like, I use the word, I'm a mental toughness coach, and yet I freaking hate that word, tough. But it's what people understand. So I use it. So, people be like, oh yeah, Shawnee's going to get there, she's going to put the hammer down and she's just going to get these athletes tough. And I'm like, I'm going to teach them the soft skills because those are hard. I'm not going to teach them suck it up, buttercup. I'm not going to teach them just get out there and be confident.
That's what Lee tells me before all of these podcasts. That's all he says.
See, I got to help Lee here. I got to help him.
Stop your whining, JB. Suck it up.
Suck it up, buttercup. Get down there. I would never presume to drill the drill instructor.
I love
what I believe is not being taught in sport, and so this is what I focus on. I teach athletes what to do with how they feel. If you ever wanted to have a feeling, play a sport. Think about every single feeling that sport touches upon. Then the difficulty is sport goes, oh yeah, sure, you're there, you can have a feeling, and we're going to put them in 2 buckets. Right. Here's the good ones. You're allowed to have those as much as you want. Here's the bad ones. And when you have those, push them over here and make sure you don't show anybody and don't tell anyone about it. So it's like, okay, here's the happy bucket and here's the crappy bucket. And I'm like, oh yeah, we need to put those into one bucket, happy and crappy. Sport is going to serve us both every single time we step into the arena. Athletes do not know what to do with the crappy bucket. They are overwhelmed with feelings and emotions and thoughts all the time, and then they hide them, avoid them, and push them away because we're supposed to be tough and just get out there and be confident. I teach the exact opposite. In fact, I was just speaking to a coach yesterday. One of the words, he's got 3 words that are part of the pillar for their team. One of the words is fearless. And I said, Coach, would it be all right if I challenged you on that? I said, I think fearless is ridiculous. You tell me somebody that shows up on the biggest day, the biggest stage of their life, and they're like, I'm freaking fearless right now. Bullshit. You're ready to pee your damn pants. So let's stop using words, in my opinion, that teach us to be emotionally unintelligent. And so what I said to that coach, I said, what about courage instead? What if you substituted fearless for courage? Because if you're telling your guys you want them to come out being fearless, what about when they're not? Right. What are they supposed to do with that? Oh, we're supposed to be fearless, but I don't feel that way, so I'm going to try and hide that. I teach emotional intelligence and self-awareness. I teach athletes to know what to do with how they feel. Because if you're hiding from your feelings, how's it going to work for you? Biggest day, biggest stage of your life. How are you going to stand on the top of the podium when you're hiding?
Now, I don't know why you thought we would hate that answer. I love this answer.
Yeah, we
This
love
is all
that
what we
stuff.
stand for here. And
EQ,
yeah.
EQ, coach. EQ is
yeah.
I mean, it's as important, if not more important, than IQ. So,
bam.
Shawnee, let me and JB too. Let me tell you guys some cool stories here, where I learned a lot of what you're talking about, Shawnee. So I remember one time when I was young, I didn't make a team, and I was kind of tearing up in the car. And my father, who I love very much, just always dropped these nuggets. And I remember, I was kind of holding back. I didn't want to cry in front of my dad. He said to me, he goes, "Lee, boys don't cry, men do." It's like, whoa, right between the eyes with that one. He just had an understanding of this stuff. I'd never heard that before, right? But it really hit me between the eyes. Another one, talked about fear. I love that you brought this up. And again, JB, if you want to comment on this, please do. But I talked to a combat controller one time, and he was really open up to me about combat. And he said to me, of course, I'm scared, but I recognize that, accept it, and I have to move it aside. But I recognize that I'm feeling that way, and I compartmentalize it and move forward. Because I can't be that way on the battlefield, but of course I am. I'm thinking to myself, obviously the stakes are a little higher at that level. Right? Here's someone saying that he just fully admits it. Of course I feel that. Right? So what I learned from that was, and as you said, coaching to feelings or working with feelings. I'm all about that with my son, who's 8. When he's having a tantrum or he's really excited or whatever, when he's feeling something, I try when appropriate to stop and say, what are you feeling right now? I want you to identify the emotion, because if you identify it, you can start to build these things in your brain of, wow, I'm really excited, or wow, I'm really upset, or wow, I'm angry, or wow, I'm frustrated. Because if you start to understand what you're feeling, you can understand how to navigate those. Because listen, we make equally bad decisions when we're excited as we do when we're upset. That's another misnomer. Like, I'm excited, let me make good decisions right now. No, go to a casino. I'll show you people making bad decisions when they're excited every hour on the hour. And the last thing I just wanted to comment on is, you talk about sports, you want to feel an emotion. Look, I love any game is a microcosm of life. You're going to work really hard. You're going to go up and down, and you may win or you may lose. That's how life works, right? So just to your point, while winning is important in terms of coaching outcomes, right? That's just a moment, right? Coaching your team to understand the full journey. And this is kind of rounding out what we're talking about. If you do that the right way, you will get more moments, but you're probably never going to be undefeated. Another thing too, and I'll shut up. Winning everything, like really winning championships, insanely hard. Fans typically do not understand this. A lot of coaches don't understand this. The odds are never in your favor. If you're an NHL team, there are 31 teams that are going to lose and only one that's going to win. And even the one that you think is going to win, if Tampa Bay or Colorado Avalanche, their chances of winning are only like 23%, even if they're the best team in the league. The odds are never in your favor. So if you're an athletic director or a GM, all the onus just on that without seeing the bigger picture of how to win is incredibly short-sighted to me. And the organizations that find success, long-term success, pick one, right? Ones that win over and over. You can pick Bill Belichick, maybe even the Yankees of the 90s, right? The Oilers of the 80s. They even in that era, they talk about Glenn State. They talk about how much family it was. Great Wayne Gretzky. We were a family. We were there for each other. And then these one and done championships, or the ones that JB alluded to. Chicago sells their soul to the devil for a victory. Look at them now. So anyway, I'm throwing a lot out there. I apologize, but I completely agree with your answer. That's exactly what we stand for.
Yeah. And I just think that I'll just caveat on it. I just think that EQ is so important. And, everybody watched that, that Last Dance thing. And remember, they were talking to Phil Jackson about the secret play he drew up at the end of that one. And he was like, give the ball to Jordan. Everybody else get out of the way. I mean, that's a coach with some EQ. It's like, yeah, get the ball to Jordan. Everybody else do something else. Jordan's got it. Right. But I think that's a part of understanding as a coach. Right. You're not trying to like overdo it right there. You're just trying to, put your team in a situation to be successful. And I think that's all this learning, developing. And Coach Shawnee, I know it's not on here, but what I cannot stand today is, and my son's a hockey director at Westchester Skating Academy. He sees parents are 10-year-old got to be on some AAA team, and we're timing these kids out at ages 8, 9, 10, because they didn't make some AAA team, or they got to be on this team. And instead of allowing these young athletes to continue to develop throughout their life, and Lee's a perfect example of a late bloomer. He came on late and had a pretty nice career. That's what happens. It's just, I was a part of 10 NHL drafts, and would have a young kid in there, and they're like, look at this kid. I'm like, he's 17. Are you kidding me? Like, he's exhausted, right? But they're like, this kid should be, well, he's not, because he's a kid. And then all of a sudden he gets drafted and he scores 53 goals in the NHL. Oh yeah, he did okay, right? But because we're throwing all this into that bucket. So, patience, perseverance, development. You're on to something, Coach Shawnee.
I don't know where to go next. Where do you want to go?
I gave you a lot.
Lee, I'm going to let you lead me where you want to go next.
No, I want to compliment you one more time in that I agree with you that you and really all of us need to use terminology that people understand to bring them through the door. But once we get them through the door, it's doing it the right way, which is what I think that you're doing. I think athletes that are not, look, I'll make it real serious. We're seeing ridiculous levels of suicide now in collegiate sports and youth sports. All right. And it's because these kids are not able to get in touch with their emotions because they were taught exactly what you are saying. We must win. You have to be fearless. You're not allowed to feel any feelings. Well, people have feelings. All right. And young people today, it's a mixture of, things are different for them. Things are different for us. I always say that, people like, oh, the young people today are so different. They're so much different. Well, we're different too. All right. I just, 100%. I can't stand when people put things in buckets like that. Like this generation. Yeah. All 15 million people or billion people in that generation, it's them. It's their fault. It's a dumb way of looking at it. We're all in the same species here. That's how you have to look at it. Some of us have more life experience than others. Right. So I agree with you that when you bring people in a door, I think that we talked about redefining winning, Shawnee. People need to redefine toughness, like my father did for me. You're tough if you're able to show your emotions in a controlled way. Like that's the other half of it, right? You can't just go sobbing everywhere and lose your mind, but you're tough if you are in touch with your emotions as an adult and can express that and be vulnerable. We talk about this on the show all the time. Vulnerability in the correct way is strength, not weakness. And there's a lot of fear. We see this in the military. We see it in sports that if I let my guard down, they won't play me. And there's two parts to that, right? Maybe you shouldn't play if you're emotionally compromised. Maybe you should focus on yourself a little bit and work on that, right? Or maybe we shouldn't put so much onus on whether someone's on or not and really care about them as people, because long-term, if you want long-term winning in the traditional sense, you need to help them as people before you can help them as products. And every team I know of where coaches looked at their players like a product or cattle, they may have some short-term victory, but it never plays out long-term. Those coaches tend to jump from team to team to team to team, right? Recycling, JB, as you said, and the organization falls apart because they're traumatized. Let me turn this into a question, Shawnee, because you're right. We're all soapboxing here. Unless you had something to say on that, I apologize.
No, well, I'm ready for your next question.
Okay, good. Thank you. So here we go. Look, we've been talking about this. Adversity and sport go hand in hand. You said that about, play a game if you want to feel something. You have a story or experience from your time coaching where a player or a team had to overcome massive adversity to succeed.
That question, that's why I held my comment, because I had a comment about what you were going to say, and it's interesting that your question leads me into what I wanted to say.
We're good hosts here. We know what we're doing.
Thank you for reading my mind. That's an exceptional talent. I have a recent one. My nephew, I work with him in some mental toughness. He is part of Team Canada freestyle team. And he he had spent all of last winter trying to qualify for the Olympics, the Winter Olympics. And wow, freestyle that's a flippin' tough sport, let me tell you. You're frickin' 20 feet in the air, spinning, twisting, twirling, somehow figuring out how to land on your feet so you don't die. He has all of these chances to qualify. Doesn't qualify, doesn't land his runs, doesn't get into the top 10. And I'm watching this play out, and the timeline's getting shorter and shorter because the Olympics are coming. Olympics were in February. So 2 weeks before the Olympics, it's his last chance. And I'm like, holy cows, we're talking 12th hour here. He had to finish because Team Canada, like all the other countries, they can only send so many skiers. So he, on the last opportunity, he had to finish ahead of one specific teammate. Whichever of those two finished ahead of each other, that one's going to the Olympics.
Wow, that's pressure. Yeah.
So my nephew, the last run, right? So last day, last run, last chance, last anything. Like he lands his run. My nephew finishes 4th. His teammate finishes 5th.
Wow.
He's going in 2 weeks. So within a week, 10 days, he's on a plane to the Olympics. So here's the part that's interesting. So this is what in sport, this is known as performance on demand. Like you gotta be good right now. If you're not good right now, too bad, so sad. Boom, you're out of here. Thanks for coming out. This performance on demand, I think you want to talk about the ability to handle adversity. So this is the point I wanted to make. So I'm chatting with my nephew out. He's still in Europe, so we're texting. And I said to him, holy crap, like, were you nervous? Like, you're standing up there in the starting, you're standing in the starting gate, and I'm like, I wanted to know, like, what's going on? Because you want to talk about it's on the line, an Olympic spot on the line. And this is what he said to me. So I said, were you nervous? He said, yes and no. I'm like, oh. And he said, yes, because he said, I understood very clearly what was on the line. And then listen to this. And he said, and the no is because I had accepted the fact that I might not qualify. I really want to focus on this because it leads me to what I wanted to say before. The gist of what he had figured out. So what I teach is paradoxical thinking. We can handle two contrasting thoughts at the same time because we believe that we can handle either. He had come to terms with the outcome. We can't come to terms with an outcome if we can only accept one. Because every outcome has one of two things. I got what I wanted. I didn't get what I wanted. I won or I lost. I got chosen. I didn't get chosen. He had come to terms. So in other words, this is the emotional intelligence I wish I had when I started coaching. Because he had come to terms with it, he no longer feared the outcome. Yeah. Think about how we perform when we don't fear the outcome. We accept. Accept is not giving in. It's not giving up. It's not decreasing the competitiveness. It's like, let's effing go. And I'm going to either make that Olympic spot or I'm not, but let's effing go. And we come out with this feeling of courage because we no longer fear the outcome.
That's brilliant.
That's paradoxical thinking.
That is brilliant. And I love it. And, you just put a a word to a definition that I couldn't fully grasp. It's funny you mentioned this because I was just coaching in a playoff experience. And I remember telling the head coach, look, whether we win or lose, it doesn't matter. Like, we're going to be with our families in a few days, regardless. And if we, like you said, we're going to get what we want or we won't. And this eerie calmness kind of just came over us. And, and I think this is the disconnection point for most people, Shawnee, is that, because I've met these people, you can't think that way. If you think that way, you're not going to, here's the truth. I know myself well enough. I'm going to do everything within my control to do the best that I can. And I also know that might not get me what I want. And I am so comfortable at this point of my life. And there's no way I could have done this in my 20s or teens. All right. And I'll jump into that in a second. But I know myself well enough. I'm doing everything I can in any job that I'm doing. It may work out. It may not. And you know what? We all get lost in our little stories. We all get lost in our lives. And at the end of the day, this scares people. We're so inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. You know what I mean? Like even the whole planet and the history of our species is so insignificant, right? And that scares people at first, but like it's you have to accept it. That's a fundamental truth, right? And when I approach things now, it's not that I don't care. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. It's just, listen, I'm not going to put all this pressure on myself. I know I'm doing everything I can. And I don't believe that if I only accept one outcome and put all that pressure on myself, I'm going to do better. I just don't believe that, at least in the arena we're talking about. Let me put it that way, right?
Well, social psychology supports that. I mean, if you go look into any of this research, you'll see this. Actually, have your listeners Google this. What you resist persists.
Right.
So if we're resisting the fact that there are two outcomes, the fear actually increases.
Right.
As soon as we face it, I talk all the time in my coaching about F words. Fear, feelings, failure, face, fake. When we face the truth actually sets us free.
Right.
And the truth is, you're going to get what you want, or you're not going to get what you want.
That is the outcome. There is no debating that is the outcome.
That's the truth.
Right. And JB, it's like, again, actually, Shawnee, yes, the truth. That is the key word of what you just said. That is a truth.
So face it.
Right. And we're terrified, and we're teaching kids not to do that.
Yes.
All right. And then we wonder why they're so under pressure. JB, is it you that's always telling me about the skiing with the trees? Is that your story? I don't want to take it from you if that's you.
No.
So, okay. So it's like, I've heard this so many times. If you're skiing fast and you're only looking at the trees saying, don't hit the trees, you're going to hit a freaking tree. You must look at the path in front of you. You know that there's a risk of hitting a tree, but you can't focus on that. Right. So I'm just going to go back to what you just said. It is a truth. It is a fundamental truth. You may win. You may lose. You may get what you want. You may not. You can do everything right in the game. Something's going to happen. You can lose. I've seen it. We've all seen a team. I'm just going to use hockey. We've all seen a team play 59 minutes, 55 seconds and lose because they did something wrong in the last 5 seconds, or a puck bounces off a skate. Even you can do everything perfectly. And look, you want to get real serious? Let's talk about driving. You can be doing everything right on the road, and a drunk driver can hit you and you can die.
Right.
That is a truth. You don't have to be right or wrong for something bad to happen to you, but you got to accept that. And we all accept that risk on the road. Go ahead, JB.
No, Coach, did you, the young man that didn't make the team, did you happen to speak to him? I'd be interested to see what he thought.
Such a good question. I did not. I did not. That would be very interesting.
That would be interesting to see how he, and it's so funny how like everybody looks at this way. I will tell you that, the figure skaters watch the like the skiers and stuff like that, and in the Olympics they get 3 chances to make their run, and the figure skaters are like, yeah, we should have 3 chances,
right?
Because, they go out, it's short program, long program, that's it, like,
right.
and but they look at it that way. You want to talk about performance on demand, like you have to be. you have to be right on it that way as well too. It's so difficult to come that way. I look at it from like the military perspective, and and all these servicemen and women like doing these missions, especially in combat. Yeah, it's performance on demand, and you just bring it out, and it's like, yeah, there's going to be an outcome here, right? I'm either gonna do it and survive, or not do it and not survive, or right. and look at it, and you take that fear aspect out of the way. I think that's amazing. How you present that, Coach. I think it's so important just for people, for coaches.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah. For athletes, for everybody, just looking, just for parents, parents to, the one word I add with when I'm working with parents too is the P word, patience. Let's be patient with this athlete as this athlete's continuing to develop. So, and as they get higher, then maybe you take some of that patience off, but especially when they're continuing to develop as human beings. Go ahead, Lee.
I was just saying, look, the development never ends. I have that quote. I always say that good coaches know everything. Great coaches know nothing. Right. And Shawnee, I love that. I love that you came right out and said, I spent years doing this, and I wish someone had told me that earlier. You are telling people that right now. Someone will be better off because of this episode and what you've just said. Right. And here's the other thing too. Look, we talked about Herb Brooks before. I'm sure him getting cut from the 1960 Olympic team was a heavy motivation point for him to get into coaching. All right. We know it's been well documented. He wanted that 80 team because of that moment. So
and he was in the photo.
He was in the photo of the 1960
and he was in the photo,
yeah.
And then he did that. He did that later on. There's one or two players in the 80.
Ralph
photo.
Cox didn't make the team.
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead. I was just going to say this. Look, we all get into coaching for different reasons. Look, I've met young volunteers that they're young and they want to help kids, and that's why they get into it. Look, I got into it to win when I started. I wanted to win. I wanted to prove myself. I didn't make the show, and I wanted to prove it. I'm so thankful that I was misguided in that way, because through that ego trip, I was able to find the path that I'm on now. And I find so much fulfillment, I really mean this, in helping other people, whether it's coaches or players, whether they're going to the NHL or not. I find so much happiness in that journey, but I never would have gotten here if I didn't go through that, 10-year period of let's win the championship. Let me get on the newspaper. Let me get in front of the camera. And Shawnee, I'm trying to round this out. That goes to what you said, right? I wasn't able to do the paradoxical thinking back then. Right. And I had to go through that to learn. And that's kind of my broad message is that's the journey, right? The journey may take years. I think it doesn't matter as long as if you figure it out at some point. Look, people live, and you said this, Shawnee, people are born, live, and die having never been conscious of this their entire lives. That, to me, that's scary, right? I fully admit, you want paradoxical thinking? I fully admit that there's things I'm still blind to, right? And my goal is that if I do awaken to one of them, is not to push it away.
Yeah, like the Flyers are better than the Penguins, right?
I never said that, JB. That's never once come up this season, right? And there were years, but no, yeah. I just think about these things all the time, and that growth mindset. And I'll tell you what, Shawnee, I found more success thinking this way than I have the other way, the egotistical way.
If I could add this for all of us to think about, I believe that most coaches are out there doing the best that they can. I really believe that. But I also believe that when we know better, we do better. That's what Maya Angelou said. I wish our coach education system, I wish our coaching culture would teach us as leaders that the first person we must lead is ourselves.
It's great.
Coaching actually says, I'm here to fix all of you. I'm going to fix all of you. I'm going to impart my wisdom. The first person that we need to look at is ourselves, and coaching doesn't teach us that. We always have the mirror turned out. I think wisdom, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, transformation, growth mindset cannot happen until we turn the mirror in. And I believe that's the first step that leaders should take. We're called leaders because we go first.
Right.
We need to grow first before we start telling everyone else how they should grow.
I love it. And if you're a young coach, that's your tidbit of information right there.
I was going to say, you just answered the last question.
Take that right there and put it in your kit bag. It's exactly right. I love it.
Right. Don't fight it, because it's going to happen inevitably. The earlier you can do it, the better. Yeah. I love it. Shawnee, listen, I got to tell you, I have loved every second of this conversation, and I knew I was going to love it when we talked on the phone the first time. You are a leader. You are someone who's been through this journey, and I just applaud you for doing everything you can. You know better, do better, right? To spread this message. And look, we stand with you, and also with the idea of, we hope that this can evolve coaching as an industry, because it does need to go this direction. That's what we stand for. So I can't thank you enough for being here today.
You're welcome. And when
Coach,
we evolve, we think
amazing.
about when we as a group evolve this industry, think who gets to win. The reason why we started doing this in the first place, the athletes.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Coach, if people want to find you, where should they look for you? Best way to get you.
My website, it's my first and last name, ShawneeHarle.com. They can find everything they need on my website. I'm also on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, we're going to have you back, because this was a great conversation. But for now, time's up. So that's going to do it for this episode of Win Championship Trades for Life, which is powered by Pivotal Moments Media. Again, check out our website, pivotalmomentsmedia.com. Check out the Grit channel for more inspirational, entertaining, and educational content in sports. For Coach Shawnee, JB Spizzo, me, I'm Lee Elias. Thanks so much for joining us. Keep an eye out for more episodes soon, and we'll see you on the next episode of Win. Have a good day. Thanks so much for listening to this edition of Win Championship Trades for Life. If you like what you heard, go ahead and hit that subscribe button or that like button wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, pivotalmomentsmedia.com. And remember, Win is part of Grit, a Pivotal Moments Media channel, which is working to break the stigma surrounding mental fitness in sports. Again, visit pivotalmomentsmedia.com for more episodes, content, and education on how we can tackle that challenge together. Keep climbing, and we'll see you on the next episode.